interesting things about Sagamore Hill is that it passed from family ownership into becoming a museum. So nobody changed it, nobody did over the kitchens or the bathrooms, and we have really an intact 1880s household for you to see. Hi, welcome to Sagamore Hill. I'm Charles Markis. I'm the Chief of Interpretation here. I want to tell you about Sagamore Hill and Theodore Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt was brought up in New York City in a very different kind of environment than here, and he always wanted to live in the country. His family had vacationed out here in the 1870s. He fell in love with the area, purchased 155 acres of land, and made plans to build his home here with his fiancée, Alice Hathaway Lee. Unfortunately, a terrible tragedy befell the Roosevelt family on February 14, 1884. Alice Hathaway Lee, his wife, had died a few hours after giving birth to his first daughter, and his mother died in the same household on the same day. Roosevelt was distraught, decided he wanted to go out west to have a change of pace, and he left the responsibility of completing Sagamore Hill and the care of his firstborn daughter in the hands of his sister Anna. He went out to the Dakota Territory, and during that time, he resumed a correspondence and ultimately a relationship that became a courtship with Edith Kermit Caro. And they were married in 1885, and the house had been finished. They changed the name from Lee Home to Sagamore Hill, and they began their life here, and they had another 5 children, 4 boys and another daughter, Ethel. So I'm going to tell you more about the house and the family as we go in. Let's go in the house. Well, the first room I want to talk about is the library or study. This was Theodore Roosevelt's office. One of the important things we like to talk about Sagamore Hill was that it was the summer White House. Roosevelt was the first president to move the seat of executive power from Washington, D.C. for an extended period of time. And he did that for the summers of his presidency from 1902 to 1908. And this is the room, this is his office, this is where he ran the country during that period of time. One of the prominent features in this room and in the entire house is the number of books that you will see. We have about 6,000 volumes still on the shelves, and many people do not know that Roosevelt was a writer. He authored 35 books, and he supported himself by writing during the times when he didn't have political appointments or elected jobs. And so TR was known very much as a writer. Another prominent feature of the house is the number of animal and wildlife trophies that are present. It's a theme that I like to call bringing the outdoors in. In addition to having the animal heads and animal skins on the floor, you see that there are also pictures of animals and various life form sculptures around. The bronze sculptures on the top shelf of the bookcase here were some of Roosevelt's favorite things. Some of these are by Remington, others are by other artists of the period, but you see that they do show Roosevelt's love of nature and bringing the outdoors in. Another prominent feature in this room is the wall of heroes that Roosevelt looks up to from his desk. And these are important men that he admired, and these are portraits that he chose to have in his presence. The first is of Lincoln. The second is of his father, Theodore Roosevelt Sr. And I like to talk about Theodore Roosevelt Sr. because it really shows where TR came from, because he was a significant philanthropist in New York City. He began the American Museum of Natural History. He helped found the Metropolitan Museum of Art. He helped put up the pedestal for the Statue of Liberty in New York City Harbor. He started a hospital for orthopedic surgery, and the Fund for Crippled and Orphaned Children has become the Children's Aid Society. Past that is a picture of Ulysses Grant, then Justice John Marshall, and back in the corner is George Washington. These were TR's heroes whom he admired very much. When this became the summer White House in 1902, there was only one telephone in the town of Oyster Bay, and that was in Snouter's drugstore. And if the president got a telephone call, Mr. Snouter's son would ride his bicycle out here to give the message, and TR would have to be driven back to town or himself to ride a horse back to return the telephone call. Later on, there was a phone line run out to Sagamore Hill. The number was 67, by the way. And the first phone was actually in the pantry, and everybody, including the president who had to use the phone, went to the pantry to make the phone call or get a phone call. And later on, they had an extension run out here to TR's desk. On the other side of the entry hall here is the drawing room, and this was really Mrs. Roosevelt's domain. And one of the prominent features in this room is the polar bear skin rug, and it's one of the few animal trophies that was not bagged by TR or one of his sons. This was actually a gift of Admiral Perry to Mrs. Roosevelt. It's quite a stunning piece. We have pictures of the children on it, playing on it. They survived this in spite of the fact that we know that it was cured and preserved with arsenic. The furniture in this room came from Theodore Roosevelt's parents' home at 6 West 57th Street. This is the most feminine and sort of easygoing room in the house. It doesn't quite reflect the masculinity of the rest of the house. And if you come down here to the other end of the room, you can actually look in and see the desk that Mrs. Roosevelt used. This was really her domain. No one was permitted to come in here without knocking, except, of course, for the pets. They were allowed to come and go at will. And you can see the water bowl under the desk there, and that was for her favorite pet, Jack the Manchester Terrier. Now, Edith Kermit Caro Roosevelt was a very interesting lady. We would expect her to run a household because that's what ladies of this period did. In fact, she ran 2 households for most of her life because the housing that her husband's required housing, White House, Governor's Mansion. So Mrs. Roosevelt had to run 2 households. But out here, she ran more than just the house because this estate was a farm, a working farm. And so there was a garden to care for, plants and crops to plan for and sow, and harvest and seeds to order, and of course hired hands. The household staff was about 6 to 10 people. There might have been 6 to 10 farm hands at one time. And then during the summer White House years, there was probably another big crop of people that were attending to the president. Secret Service, White House aides, and that kind of thing. We figure that Mrs. Roosevelt was feeding 25 people 3 times a day. Now, she didn't have to cook this food, of course. She had help to do that, but she had to plan all the menus and make sure she had all the required elements to keep everybody going. You see this wonderful china closet here filled with china. You see the bottom shelf, there are oyster plates. Oysters were prevalent in Oyster Bay, of course. And just to the right of that china closet is the ice box. Now, I'm not sure I'd want to be preparing food for 25 people 3 times a day with that kind of cold storage, but that's what there was. And here's one of the modern conveniences of technology of the day. You can see that there are speaking tubes here, and these were actually pipes that went through the house, modeled on those that were used in ships, and you could speak through this tube or put your ear up to it and hear somebody giving you orders. Striking dinner chime made from a pair of elephant tusks that were bagged by Roosevelt. The cylinders, of course, were hit with a mallet. And then, of course, this very striking figure of a Cape buffalo from Africa. After Roosevelt left his presidential office, he was hired to go on an expedition to Africa. He was hired by the Smithsonian and the American Museum of Natural History to collect. He went with a group of about 240 bearers and supporters and brought back thousands of specimens for display at the American Museum of Natural History and the Smithsonian Institution. This was the message center of the home, and the kids would put notes on the little tick birds that you see on the rhino. Mrs. Roosevelt apparently did not like this sculpture very much, and she hung her gardening hat on the first prong of the rhino's snout there, and you can see it's a little shinier than the rest because apparently it got great wear. I think it's quite a wonderful piece. It was a gift to Roosevelt by his sister Corinne.